Today's show focuses on a short squeeze forces the stock price of Tesla up and will soon put it in a position where it's above $1,000. And so our show today kind of focuses on that and where we're at in this process. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. I want to first thank our Patreon supporters, and for those of you who choose to like and subscribe, we appreciate your assistance as well. Now, Tesla's stock price has had a nice little run here over the last, let's say, 4 or 5 days. We kind of had a little sort of an interesting circumstance this morning because there's a guy named Ron Barron who's a very large Tesla holder who's a billionaire. And Ron actually came out and when he comes on the show, there's a process where he shows up on the show and then Tesla's stock price tends to go down. Part of that is there are a lot of people that sort of buy on the rumor, sell on the news, meaning that they kind of buy the stock before he goes on and they sell it as soon as he leaves. And yes, there was perhaps a 15-point drop from the 743 zone to about, 943 down to 927. And then sort of buyers started buying that dip. So our goal today was to kind of talk about what happened with the stock today, why, and what we expect to happen over the next week or so for Tesla's stock price and how things might work. So the first item that's going on is that if you check, you'll notice that about a quarter of the analysts had anticipated Tesla's stock price to be within $20 of where it is currently. So one of the components of the folks that help large institutions, which own 60% of the shares, to figure out what they're going to do in terms of buy, sell, or hold a stock, especially Tesla's, is they're relying on a forecast of kind of appropriate price point for the stock price. In this case, the target price was someplace between $950 and about $980, covers about maybe a third of the analysts, with the remainder being somewhere about 100 points lower, and the remainder of those being perhaps 100 points lower than that. So we next get to so pretty much we're sort of at the top end of the range of what the analysts have all suggested Tesla would achieve prior to earnings and the S&P inclusion. So we have an interesting situation right now where we've been forecasting / waiting for something called a short squeeze. So basically what happens is that if you're a holder of a large number of Tesla shares, or it's an institution that's doing so, they're actually hedge funds or very wealthy individuals who are traders that will actually pay you to borrow your shares for a period of time. And so they may not, for whatever reason, they haven't purchased the shares, but they're actually perhaps borrowing more shares than what they might be able to afford, and they're paying a fee for that. So what happens is that in the case of a short squeeze, what'll happen is if they've borrowed those shares, they now have to go get those shares and return them to the rightful owner. The problem that can pop up is if the stock price is above their anticipated price, or I want to say covenant prices, they've run into a problem. They can do 3 things. 1, hope the stock falls so they can get back to a price that's good, which is kind of what the short folks are doing. 2, stay where they are, and theoretically if the stock price is going sideways or down, it'll eventually get to a price and all they have to pay is the fees associated with borrowing those shares. But the third option is the stock price starts to rise dramatically. And if the third option actually occurs, they're now in what's called a short squeeze. Now, a small rise, 5 or 10 points, is not that big a deal. But when we're talking 20, 30, 40, 50 points, now we're talking kind of a dangerous circumstance for these companies. So they're now stuck in the position where they actually have to go out into the marketplace and buy the shares that they need to return to the rightful owners. And the issue that pops up is if the stock price is jumping up higher, it kind of doesn't matter what the price is. They have to go buy it or otherwise they have to go out of business. So this is traditionally called a short squeeze because, the stock price is rising and they're getting squeezed by the fact that the stock price is rising. So, there have been some folks like Mr. Chanos and some other companies that have made a point of saying Tesla does not deserve to be where it's at and have been therefore shorting the stock in hopes that it would fall low enough for them to make money off of their short positions. And actually, when stock was below $400 in that range, they enjoyed some nice success. What we're anticipating here as a possibility is that the numbers from China came out on Monday, and they were actually pretty good. And so analysts that had forecasted China numbers based on what happened last month had to modify their numbers to embrace this new information. And it's our belief that if we operate under the 3-day rule, in theory, that information came out early Monday. So by Wednesday, Thursday at the latest, we should start seeing the influence of those analysts having a chance to bake in the new China numbers and growth in business into what's going to happen for Tesla. And so therefore, we feel that it's going to be a likelihood that those institutions will start buying. Now, what this does is it creates a problem for the hedge funds. Will the stock price slow down so they can get out later at lower prices, or will it keep rising? Our estimation is going to keep rising, and if there's enough of buying pressure coming from the institutions, it will push the stock price up enough that these shorts will have to start covering, which will, because of their buying, will actually force the stock higher. So our estimate is that this week should see at least another 20 or 30 point rise in stock price driven by institutional buying. And if we're at or near sort of the tipping point for a lot of hedge funds, it's actually going to force the stock price higher. And so there's a group of funds whose loan covenants require them to exit the stock or buy the stock at a certain point. But the next challenge is those that are not hitting their covenants yet still have the issue as, hey, if the stock price is up further and we have the S&P entry potentially coming, should they try to bail out now while the getting is good, A, or B, should they try to wait it out and hope for the stock price to fall into the lowest levels they were hoping for? And I guess there's C, which is we've seen from Mr. Einhorn and some others tweets and other techniques designed to lower the stock price based on, if you will, false narratives. So I wouldn't put it past them to be able to identify things they could use perhaps as leverage to try to control the downward trajectory of the stock. What we're expecting is Tesla's $1,000 by the end of this week, maybe the beginning of next week, and hopefully all of you are able to make some good money in the process. And so we're eagerly awaiting sort of what's going to happen, why, when, where, and the theory is that these short sellers are now in a tough position, and they're going to have to figure out what to do. And I think it makes it fun for us because if you're in the stock or options on the call side, you're going to make a nice amount of money as all of this plays out. So, I look forward to sort of hearing your comments. Today we kind of had a battle between the bulls and bears in our group. I was of the opinion that the stock price would rise today based on the fact that we're going to hit the 3-day rule tomorrow. One of our main traders sort of jumped on that opinion, but initially he thought the Barron effect would really destroy the stock price today, even though there were some good numbers for the analysts to work with. And so he did a smart thing to switch back onto the, if you will, the call side or the heading upside for Tesla, and was successfully able to get out of the day in that fashion. So basically our argument is that there may not be a short squeeze, in which case you see a 20 or 30 point rise for the stock sort of in the near term driven by the Chinese production numbers we just went through. But I think there's a probably 40 to 50% chance that those higher numbers generated by institutions buying the stock will result in a push-up of the Tesla stock price to the level where we end up with a nice upward movement of Tesla stock. and that triggers the short sellers to really have to scramble to cover before they get buried by a rising stock price. So if this occurs, and we think it's a real possibility, Tesla could run up to 1,000, heading for $1,100 a share is a good possibility. I'd like to encourage you guys to send us a note if you didn't see it. There's a CNBC piece regarding a trade that someone put together that focuses on Tesla end up being in the 1,000 to 1,050 zone, and a really nice sort of trade strategy related to that would triple your money. So we're happy to share that. It's a CNBC piece, and you could look it up under Tesla and CNBC, but I think you'll find it useful. Any rate, today's a short day, a little bit of back issues related to sort of back going out, and then we had some internet issues. Comcast shut down on us, but we were able to get through it anyway, and we definitely appreciate your support. Please remember 25 leg lifts a day to strengthen the quad muscles. Also, 30 or better SPF is a great idea. Also wanted to give a shout to a company called DNV Automotive in the Virginia area. They're a top-of-the-line automotive entity that does repair work, and they were able to knock out a skirt on my car repair issue in about 15 minutes. It didn't have to be a perfect job, but it was a lot of gratitude here for them getting it done quickly so I could get back on the road, and it's much appreciated. At any rate, this is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, Lehitrot Hebrew, Choda Hafez Farsi, Hey Do Swedish, Zdravstvuyte Russian, hello, Ni Hao Ma, hello in Chinese. And in Jamaica we say enough respect, Walt Goodman. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day. Bye for now. We look forward to the next opportunity to share thoughts with you. And let's get in there and make some money this week, because I think there's a great opportunity to do so. Have a great day. Bye for now. And thanks again.